Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. You know, I should start off by thanking Sean H. from the bottom of my black heart and from the depth of my black mind for that Cash App donation. Thank you, Sean. It came through the notification right at the end of the live stream, so I couldn't shout you out properly then like I wanted to. I really appreciate that. And that was very generous of you for one person. I opened this up for reasons that you see in the title, where I tell men to limit accountability, limit the accountability they will take for anything. The thing is this, there are some men, and I've found that more of them are Muslim than non in recent days when I've heard this conversation. I mean, this kind of conversation, but there have been men that are sitting up taking accountability, and they're saying that it's them. They were womanizers, or they were at least street dudes that were not behaving themselves, and they consequently they were either too busy being real N-words to be of much use, or they were just womanizers for whatever reason. Maybe women smelled enough other women on them, and they weren't going to settle down with one woman, or likewise, they were not going to get out of the street life that also brings women. But there were good women. There existed good women trying to get them on the straight and narrow, and they just wouldn't follow, and that's why it didn't work out with these women. Some of you from hearing this already know why that is BS, and others of you are waiting to hear why that is BS. How could that really make sense considering what we know? And I'm going to go ahead and answer partially for you and tell you that the issue we have, my people, is that these women, in order to try to convince these men, had to jump over a bunch of men that were already on the straight and narrow. And it's not possible that every man on the straight and narrow is ugly and that every man on the straight and narrow is weak. That's not a possibility. So, while it is true that women often respond to the environment, the difference is that Western black women create the environment to which they will respond. And this is why I don't let them off the hook. They decide the environment, and then they respond how they want to because they set the environment up from the very beginning. And it was going to be that way the whole time. They say, well, we're responding to rough environments, and so we have to get guys that can survive in these rough inward environments. No, that's not what happened. What happened was that they designed the rough environments. They demanded it in order to crush the men that were not like that. They will say, well, we were left unprotected. Well, they insist on being left unprotected so that they can then blame the men that didn't protect them. And so when these men that are on the straight and narrow already and are not womanizers either, are not being pursued, and no women are trying to convince, or no women are rewarding them and picking them for being on this, then we already understand what it is. So when these men start taking accountability and saying, well, it didn't work out because I was immature, understand that the accountability the men are rightly taking is for their behavior. They are right to accept accountability for how they chose to behave. They are wrong for accepting accountability for it not working out with these women. It was not going to work out with those women. That was never going to be the case from the very beginning. Those women were never going to be with these guys if they were on the straight and narrow. And I don't think that a lot of them could have even helped themselves. If these were Western black women that were choosing the guys that were not on the straight and narrow, then understand that they were never going to be with the men that were on the straight and narrow, and they could not have done any better because they could not make themselves choose a man on the straight and narrow, because they could not bring themselves to choose men that their friends would not approve. And we already know that black women's sisterhoods and circles of friends do not approve of them sexually rewarding men that are on the straight and narrow and don't have the smell of the streets on them. They don't appreciate that. So the men are right for taking accountability for their behaviors. They acted a particular way. That's right. They did particular things. That's right. That is okay for them to say, well, I was in the streets or I was a serial fornicator. That is right. But they are wrong when they sit up there and say, yeah, but it was my fault. It didn't work out. For the nuck, it wasn't. If these men had been mature, then there would have been no relationship to work out. There would have been no marriage to work out or not work out. If these men had been mature, on the up and up, behaving as they're supposed to behave as responsible men the same age, it would have been pretty much the same as what it is for the guys that we know that started off, especially if they're now in their 20s or 30s, guys that started off and were responsible, because we now understand, we now know. As a matter of fact, when I was coming up, you could be a responsible black man and you might have a shot. You were probably going to be cheated on later, but you might have a chance. But if you are younger than I am, considerably speaking, let's say you're in your 30s or your 20s, it's pretty much known that all you had to be was responsible, not a stereotype, not an N19, not a knuckle-dragging, gun-toting thug. That's all the hell you had to be. It wasn't even about what you were. It was about what you weren't, and you were going to be mistreated and disrespected again and again and again and again. And you were going to be friend-zoned, not because they valued your friendship. And you were going to be questioned as to the N-word you were not and why you weren't worse. And that's what the Wuck it was going to be all this time. It was always that from the very beginning. It started off that way, and it was not your fault to begin with, so don't accept that sort of accountability. Stop it. It was not your fault from the very beginning. And if you are the least bit intelligent, you will refuse to accept that sort of accountability from the very beginning. I hope that this helps. Now you understand why it is that I say quit taking accountability, gentlemen. And of course, for what you can control and have adequate knowledge over along with the control. But adequate knowledge of how to control is the exception, and that is for which you take accountability. But when there is anything lacking, be it control or knowledge, let alone both, you don't accept accountability, because when you do, all you do is set it up to where the next man can then be blamed And he had nothing to do with this, and he had no control nor knowledge in order to affect a different outcome. He just got the scraps that were tossed to him. You can say, well, play the cards you're dealt as many times as you want to say that. The fact remains that there's still, the majority of most men are going to be dealt bad cards artificially by D's O's and blamed for the mind reading they can't do. I hope that what I've said helps and benefits you. Thank you for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, jet black out. Assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Thank you for jetting black with me till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.